silver solder ball on the end of a straight piece of wire. Then I'm going to bend this to this profile. Now this represents the cheekbones, the upper jaw, and the lower jaw. Here's the joint with the lower jaw coming off of there. Okay, I decided to put the first bend in this thing before I solder the ball on there. You could bend the whole thing before you solder the ball on there for the skull if you want to. But this is going to be the same process of bending it. And then comparing the bend with the drawing and seeing if I can make that work in there like that. He's got his neck and the top part of his head, so it's time to make his jaw. Here's the joint we just made. This sandwich part here, and this is a 3/32 inch rod, silver soldered onto a 1/4 inch ball, and this is gonna be his jaw, and it's gonna fit into the skull. I'll show you how it's gonna fit into the skull. It's gonna fit into the skull about like this. Yeah, this is going to work out. Okay, fits pretty well on there. Fits pretty well on there. He's going to be fine. That jaw is going to work fine. The clavicle is the most expressive bone structure in the human body, in my opinion. It says so much about how we feel. It allows us to throw our shoulders back. Allows us to throw our shoulders forward, and if we're down or we can show it with our clavicles. If we're open, we can show it with our clavicles. Also, it's impossible to raise your arm above a certain point without engaging the clavicle. So it's a very important bone for structure. And that'll go right in here. And I'm gonna make a double end joint, and we're gonna notch it, and we're gonna silver solder it right into the rib cage there. I'm making a double ball sandwich joint for the clavicles. It's the same as the other one we made, except this one's made out of steel, so I'm using more lubricant and going a little slower. Now here's the joint that we're making for the clavicle. And I want you to notice something about this. We're going to silver solder. First it's steel. And see how I've rounded the ends here? That doesn't just look nice. That actually helps the joint to move, the ball to move more freely in there. But we're going to silver solder this joint right in here. Okay, I'm arranging to silver solder this one side of the clavicle joint to the rib cage. I've cleaned up the metal, sanded it all off, and I've got to flux it now. Okay, it's all fluxed now. I've got it at the right angle, so I'll be able to get the screw into it afterwards. Put it on there the right way. I have to keep the flame away from the other silver solder joints because I don't want to melt them. I'm going to heat up the big piece of metal more. Okay, I'm going to put the bottom part of this clavicle on now that we've silver soldered the top part to the rib cage. I've got a couple of barbells in here. They're just like the ones we made before, except that these have 3/8 inch ball on one and a 1/4 inch ball on the other. 1/4 inch ball will be the shoulders. And we're going to see how this works, and it works real well. It doesn't lead to one side. It goes right where you push it, and it's a good joint. It's very nice and smooth. Okay, here we have our skeleton so far. There's a 1/4 inch ball at the shoulder, and that's represented here on our drawing. What's going to happen here is this 1/4 inch ball is going to go into a steel single end ball joint, and it's going to be silver soldered onto a rod, at the end of which is another 1/4 inch ball, which will be the elbow, and that will be silver soldered onto a rod that will come down to the wrist. Of the single end ball joint, I'm going to silver solder a rod with a ball on it down here. Okay, so here's our 4 single end ball joints, the L brackets. We've got 2 for shoulders and 2 for elbows. Now I've arranged this to silver solder. These are 1 3/4 inches apart, the joint centers, the ball centers. So I've measured that very carefully. I'm going to put some white out where I don't want the silver solder to go. I've mentioned that before, but this time I'm actually going to show you. This white out acts as a barrier where the silver solder won't flow to. I want to keep it away from the threaded hole where the screw is. Well, here we see the first installment of the arm installed. This is the upper arm, and we'll just do this routine 3 more times and we'll make the forearm, the other upper arm, and the other forearm. Okay, here's our fellow with the arms. Alright, as anybody's probably noticed by now, I'm big on drawing and planning. And this is a hand. I'm going to put the very small single end ball joint steel here. I'm going to silver solder only one side of this so the other side can float freely to a stainless steel plate that I'm going to cut out. It's going to be very thin but stiff, and it's going to have a bunch of holes in it, and I'm going to thread some wire through those holes and make the fingers and the thumb. Here are the single end ball joints that are going to be the wrist. You can see they're quite small. They're exactly like the other single end ball joints we made of steel, and except that they're smaller. Alright, here's our drawing, and here's a piece of stainless steel plate that I cut out. It's 30 thousandths thick. It's 304 stainless. I harvested that out of a scrap heap. You can tell it's stainless steel if it's steel and it's not magnetic. And here is the single end steel ball joint that's going to make up the wrist. It's going to go right there. I'm going to silver solder only half of this joint to the plate so that the other side can float freely and tighten over the ball. I'm also going to drill a bunch of holes like we spoke of in this piece here, in the steel plate, and we're going to thread wire in there to make the fingers. Okay, so here we see our guy with his skeleton about complete. A little cleanup needed to cut off the screws, and the hands are on. So let's take a closer look at those hands and see what's going on there. Okay. Now what we have here, a single end ball joint that we made in this sheet stainless steel with holes drilled in it, cut out, and we have a nice movement of the hand. It moves in all the different directions that a hand moves in. The first thing you need is some pipe cleaners that are made out of cloth. And it's hard to find pipe cleaners that are made out of cloth. The ones you get in the craft store are made out of plastic, and they don't work as well as this does. So I'll put the name of this kind of pipe cleaner up. And this is a good kind of pipe cleaner because they do this trick I'm going to show you right now. The pipe cleaner comes and it's got a lot of fuzz all over it, which is to clean out the pipe. But we're not interested in cleaning out pipes. We're interested in the wire that's inside of these things. So now if you're a young person, get an adult to help you with this. Get an adult to help you with all of this. But you know, if you're an adult, you can probably buy one of these, a Bic lighter. And you can light the pipe cleaner like that and burn all the fuzz off of it. And when it's all done glowing and being hot, then you can clean the fuzz off of it like that. You get these two really neat little skinny wires that I've been using for fingers for a long time, and they don't break much. Matter of fact, I have a puppet from 40 years ago that's still got these wires in it. Okay, here's our hand, and here's a couple of burn-off pipe cleaners. We just got the wire inside. It's actually a double wire. It's a twisted wire. May explain why it doesn't break very often. And by going in and out of these holes, we're going to find that we are anchoring these things down pretty well. So I'll bring this over here. I'll bring the thumb off about here. It's hard to do reaching around the camera. There we go. Okay. Help that through that hole there. Yeah. So I think I could actually, let me see here. There's our index. Here comes our thumb. I think I could bend the thumb back and get another finger out of it maybe. So let's try that. I think I might get a little finger out of this. I don't think I'm going to get a big finger out of it. Okay, let's see. Well, it looks like I did. And I gotta come out of this one here, I think. Alright. So there's our hand pretty much. I always cut it shorter. I just rough cut it off of there. Alright, so there's our hand. That one's a little long on the ring finger, but okay, so there's our hand, and it's going to work just fine. Okay, you probably noticed I'm wearing a different colored shirt, and I took my hat off. I want to get your attention. I got something important I want to tell you. Whenever you deal with chemicals like monomer and acrylic, tooth dental powder, the plastic, you got to know what you're dealing with. Some of these chemicals are dangerous. They're not healthy to breathe. They're not healthy to eat. So there's a material and safety handling data sheet for everything that's made, that's used by people, And you need to get that information. You need to educate yourself and be safe. If it says wear a respirator, then wear a respirator. Okay, lecture's over on that one. Be safe, educate yourself, know what you're dealing with. And let's make some teeth. Alright, I've sculpted teeth on this skull. I sculpted it in polyform clay. They can use any kind of clay. And I have it arranged so that I can fit the teeth right in that container there. I'm going to fill that with alginate. We're going to make a mold. We're going to make some acrylic teeth for him. Got my empty cup here, my alginate here. I put some water in here. Some alginate out of the container here. Drop it into the water and mix it up. Get it into the container. It's going to hold the mold. Okay. And now we'll take the teeth and we will embed the teeth into the alginate without catching any bubbles. Let's hope. And we'll wait for it to set up. The alginate's all set up. I can press it with a toothpick and see it doesn't take any impressions. So that means I can pull the teeth out of there and I have the impression of the teeth right there. You take the monomer, which is, by the way, this is something you don't want to have any fire around. This stuff is not friendly stuff. You don't want to drink any of it either, for sure. And I can drop a little bit of this powder into the teeth area. I've just filled up the teeth area with the powder there. And then I can take the monomer, which is the catalyst for this stuff, and drop it into the powder in the alginate.